The Still Loading podcast is brought to you by the wonderful people on Patreon. Amazing people like Matt, aka Stormageddon, Eric H., Kevin from the Bit by Bit Foundation, Ryan K., Gilmer, Mr. Biscuits, and Stephen P. have all been wonderful enough to support the show over there. So if you would also like to get your name read at the beginning of an episode, along with a bunch of other goodies, go over to patreon.com/stillloadingpod and check out everything it has to offer. On this episode of Still Loading,
these priceless jewels are yours when you join my harem.
Me join a harem? Oh, give me a break. Harems are from the stupid olden days.
I like the stupid olden days.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Still Loading podcast. I'm your host, Josh Koval, and today's episode is a continuation of our rewatch series on the Super Mario Bros. Super Show and the Legend of Zelda cartoon, but we did Legend of Zelda last month, so you know what that means. We're on to a new Super Mario Bros. Super Show. This is going to be episode 4, and of course, my co-host with the mo-host is joining me, Dexter Morrill. Dex, how are you doing today?
Got my mushroom.
Was that supposed to be like the pipe going up? Or no, that's a mushroom, sorry, you said.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? Whatever the listener thinks that was, we'll go with that. But I'm here and I'm ready. Are
you Dexterina and I am Josephina? Josephina?
Yes, I think that's what we'll go with.
Yeah. This episode, listeners, there's a live action segment, as we know, in a cartoon segment. The live action segment is called Marianne and Luigeena.
Totally real name.
Oh, absolutely. And the cartoon segment is Mario's Magic Carpet. And the writer of this episode is Rowby Gorin. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh at somebody's name, but Rowby Gorin. If you go to his Wikipedia page, there's a picture of him, and it's a shirt. He's wearing a shirt that just says Rowby on it, and he's wearing a blue shirt with bright yellow letters, and it just says Rowby on it, and it has arrows pointing up to his face, and then it says Rowby.com.
I mean, it's a very distinct name. And if I heard the name, I would ask, who is Rowby? And his shirt does that for me.
He has done screenwriting for a lot of different things. He did The Wacky World of Tex Avery in 1997. Gadget and the Gadgetinis in 2002. It's a spin-off of Inspector Gadget. It's the sequel series.
See, my brain went straight to Gadget from the Rescue Rangers, but
he has also written for Tiny Toons, Mario Brothers 3, like the cartoons, obviously, the TMNT cartoon, the California Raisin Show.
Ooh, Arthur.
Did he write for Arthur?
Yeah.
Rambo, The Force of Freedom. Oh my God. He's written for a ton.
Beast Wars. Nice.
I am really curious if Rowby.com is still up and running. You know what?
Oh, I'm on it right now, baby.
You are?
Yep. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Teen Wolf animated series.
Wow. Yeah, he's still going. And a new Rowby show coming soon at the top there. Rowby has been a professional comedy writer and story supervisor. You know what? As much as this show is known for being silly and goofy and all this other stuff, I will say the comedy in this episode is better than some of the other ones.
Yes, there are definitely layered puns and jokes in this particular episode.
And with that said, Dexter, I think because we are on a slight time crunch, and I am long-winded and tend to ramble, so let's dive into this one, shall we?
Sure.
The episode begins with Mario getting a phone call from his cousins, Marianne and Luigeena, and he's trying to like distract them. I don't understand the purpose of this. Like I guess he just doesn't like them, so it's making him nervous, and because of that, he's oversharing with everything. And uh, because he's oversharing with everything, he tells them that Lyle Alzado is coming to visit them, and Lyle Alzado was a football player
Yes.
for the Oakland Raiders, I want to say, now the Las Vegas Raiders. Um, I'm going to double check to make sure I have that dude's last name.
Yeah,
It's
you're right. It's Alzado.
It's Alzado. Yeah, it's.
Mhm.
Oh wow, what is it with this show? I've seen this before, where they'll have a guest on, and they will be like they'll pass away shortly after doing the show.
Yes, I was going to bring that up. I wasn't sure when that was going to come up, but like yet another like tragic story for this guest star.
So the guest star for the last one, it was Sergeant Slaughter. He's still alive. Danica McKellar was the one before that. Nicole Eggert was the other one, and she is still okay. Maybe I'm going crazy then, because I could have sworn there was another like star that like passed away shortly after doing the show, and maybe I'm just like not. Maybe I'm misremembering it. I don't know, but yeah, he passed away in 1992 due to cancer, sadly. At least from quick facts, excuse me, listed on Google.
Yes,
But
he was one of the first like tragic stories with anabolic steroids, actually.
oh, really?
Yeah, he's the one who first kind of publicized the downside of it, and I don't know if they ever looked into it anymore as far as the actual effects, but he definitely blamed the steroids for the tumor that he got in his brain.
Wow.
And he became
Wow.
a big, once he found out about it, he became a big proponent against them. And because I guess just scanning his information, he'd been doing them since 1969. He'd been on them,
Wow.
and then he did public speaking with people while he was also doing like acting and things, talking about how it's ruined his memory, how it's ruined his personality, like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the rage that it would create and things like that, and that he was like, I'm not the same person I used to be, and he saw young people doing it as well, and his teammates and everything, and he just wasn't really happy with how that was, like, it was becoming a big thing. He didn't like the addiction. He didn't like, so he became one of the first people to become vocal about it. And unfortunately, according to I don't know if his doctors told him this as well, and I don't know if it's proven or anything, but he blames his brain cancer on his usage of the steroids.
Wow. I mean, that dude, rest in peace, man. What a like what a noble thing to do towards like once he found out the bad news, like that's such a noble thing to do, to just try to like spread the word, especially back at the time, back in this era when like athletes didn't really speak out about that kind of stuff. So yeah, Lyle, this sounds like a pretty cool dude, but Lyle is visiting Mario and Luigi, and Mario accidentally spills it to his cousins who are supposedly obsessed with him, that he's going to be there, and then they decide to rush. Mario and Luigi decide to rush out to get refreshments before Lyle and hopefully Luigeena and Marianne show up, and that is all that there is for the live action cold open. Like, not cold open. I'm still in my still bonding phase. I just recorded still bonding last night, so I'm still in that mindset. Yeah, and it jumps over to the cartoon segment. the Mario's Magic Carpet. Now, Dex, I didn't really have a whole lot of, how like I keep track of like, here's all of Bowser's insults and here's all of the, like things Mario's craving and Luigi's excuses and stuff like that.
Yeah, we didn't get any really. I was listening for them as well. I mean, we got some clever puns and some silly jokes, but yeah, this one didn't really have any of our classic. The closest we had was right at the beginning when they're walking through the desert and Mario's like, "Water, water! I'll even settle for some meat sauce."
That's the only one that I wrote down for Mario. He does like he praises the genie of the magic lamp and offers her food, but it's not a craving of his, So I don't think that one really counts,
Right. Yeah.
Bowser did call them the Badinsky Buddies again, which is a repeat from episode 3. They use that same insult in that one, and then the closest one that I have for Luigi is that when they meet the genie in this episode, because the whole premise of this episode is that they want to get the magic lamp, like kind of in similar to Aladdin and whatnot. They want to get the magic lamp to use what is it? Basically, they want to get the magic lamp, I guess. I forget why they're looking for it.
Essentially, so that Koopa doesn't get it. They were saying to protect the kingdom, so that they could keep it away from Koopa, is how they described it in the show.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And when they do finally meet the genie, they ask the genie to help them fly. And she goes, "Oh, that's going to be a real drain on me." And Luigi goes, "No problem. Any drain you got, we can fix. We're plumbers."
Yeah, I liked that little...
Which it's not an excuse, but it's the closest thing I could find to like Luigi just being kind of silly,
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah. So the episode begins with it's Plumber's Log 437. They arrive in a dry and dusty desert on a lumpy camel, as he describes it, a lumpy camel. And one of my favorite lines from this is Luigi exclaiming, "Oh, mamma mia, we should have rented a camel with air conditioning."
Yeah, I liked that too. Like my favorite Luigi quote is coming up, though. I'll tell you when we get there.
Oh, Mario thinks he sees a waterfall, and it turns out to be a mirage of just a camel licking him. And that's also when he's like looking for meat. He's looking for water. I'll take anything, even some meat sauce or whatever.
Did you hear the underwater theme come in when he was like thought he was bathing underneath the waterfall?
I didn't.
It's doing the do 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 do. It's playing that like in the music. I thought that was a nice little touch.
Something, because I watched this last night and with Courtney and my daughter, and one thing my wife pointed out was that this episode is filled with things that scared us as kids that realistically we're never going to have to deal with in our life and don't work that way. Because not only does this episode have nothing but mirages, like they're like, what does Princess Peach say? Or sorry, excuse me, Toadstool. I wrote it down as Peach because I'm so used to that, but it's it's Toadstool. Doesn't she say we're going to have to ignore all these mirages? I'm like, that's not how mirages work.
Yeah, and they proceed to show like a giant ice cream cone, like all these different things, and so it's one of those. I was like, are they sharing this like delusion? What? Or how are we supposed to imagine what we're seeing right now as the viewer?
And then later on, the other thing that we were terrified of as kids, because cartoons made it sound like we can just fucking run into it whenever, is quicksand.
Absolutely. Still terrifies me to this day.
There was a movie, there's like a live action version of the Jungle Book, not the CG one.
Yeah.
But the one with like oh my gosh, what's the actor's name? He plays actually when they did the Bruce Lee biopic of I think something Dragon. I forget what it might just be called Dragon. I forget the actor who plays it, but it's the same actor in the Jungle Book live action as in the Bruce Lee biopic. I'm going to double check what that is. It's Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, and it stars Jason Scott Lee. And Jason Scott Lee was also in The Jungle Book, which came out the very next year, actually.
That's right. He played Mowgli, and Carrie Elwes is in it.
Yes, he was, yeah.
Lena Headey is in it. John Cleese is in it. Sam Neill. It's got a pretty stacked cast.
It really does. And dude, I remember the end of that movie had like, Mowgli is running through, like, grown ass Mowgli as Jason Lee as grown ass Mowgli is running through this temple, and there's like booby traps everywhere, and one of them was like a sand pit, and I remember that scared the shit out of me as a kid.
It's funny because talking with my wife, she talks about how this movie was the first that kind of like introduced movie magic to her a little bit, because she saw a behind the scene, because the scene where Shere Khan like takes out a human, like, terrified her. Like, oh my gosh, that person was just eaten by a tiger. Because I think we all as kids were like, people in movies, they really do die, like,
Yeah.
But I guess she saw behind the scenes on her VHS or something, and it showed how the tiger they had on set, they were training them to like, oh, come over here and give me a hug. And so like when the tiger was jumping on people and then they cut away, it's just like they had trained the tiger to like jump up and give them a hug, and then they give them a treat, whatever. Like they cut away before you see them, give them a treat. And that was like the first time she'd seen that and was like, what? And she talks about how that was like eye-opening for her watching movies from then on.
I could see that. And that's a clever way to do it, because like you can put in the sound effects for the tiger being menacing with both music and also obviously the roar sound, but like visually all it is just them. Yeah, that's clever. I actually rewatched that for the first time in like years, like maybe a year or two ago. Like I hadn't seen it in like well over like 20 years. Right? Like I remember seeing it like while I think at maybe like 10 or 11 or some shit like that. I mean, the movie came out when I was 5, so I don't think I saw it that young. But anyway, it just talk about a trip down memory lane.
Yeah.
So another mirage, quote unquote, that they fall into, which is not actually a mirage, is a trampoline, or they think it's a swimming pool, and it turns out to be a trampoline, just a blue trampoline, and that was put there on purpose because it bounced them right into the palace of Sultan Pazba. What was he called?
I didn't catch the name. So that sounds right to me.
And he's like, we have some visitors, and they fell into my trap, the fake swimming pool or whatever. And Prince and Toadstool is like as she's flying through the air, she goes, oh no, it's a palace with a flip top roof.
Yeah. It was like we were listening to the radio play of this. Like, I can see that, Toadstool. You don't have to tell me. I can see that the top lifts off. Did you see how she and Luigi bounced on the trampoline?
Let me reverse. I don't think
I
paid attention.
Like, it's pretty funny because it makes sense if to catch one person that jumps off the diving board, but after it happens to Mario, after he goes flying off, like,
they all just sprint right into the trampoline.
Yeah, they sprint into it, and somehow they also go flying as far as Mario.
Well, they trip. They trip at the edge of the pool, and that somehow propels them far enough. Like, that trampoline must have so much bounce to it. And
Mario's face, if you're able to pause, like, looks genuinely horrified once he realizes it's actually a trampoline. It's pretty funny.
Do you think maybe that should be the thumbnail?
I was thinking either that or them riding in their amazing vehicles at some point. But this horrified Mario face is pretty good.
And I'm looking at the picture you just sent me of Mario's horrified face. That is, yeah, he's scared. He's genuinely scared. They fall into Sultan Paz or whatever his name is, his palace, and there's lots of problematic stuff in this episode. Whether the cultural element of, like, how they portray the Sultan, it's clearly like a white dude as well, which I don't know. I don't know enough about, like, middle like culture, like that culture. Whether I don't even know if it's that's actually Middle Eastern. That's what I associate it as, but that's only because the media I grew up with kind of puts it in that area. So,
Right.
or like maybe India. I don't know. I'm just not going to speculate. All I know is that this is ridiculous, and they want to, because Mario, Luigi, and Toad and Toadstool fall into the palace. They're all slaves, and he's going to put Princess Toadstool, into his harem in a children's show.
Toadstool's response is pretty great, though.
What is she? You say it. I wrote down the line too. I love it.
I'm not going to join your harem. A harem is something from the stupid olden days.
Oh no, from the stupid olden days, and the Sultan gets mad and goes, "I like the stupid olden days." It is so silly and dumb, but I like it. It's a really gross choice to do for a kids cartoon, to put your princess put the heroine of the show in a harem. Like, come on, man. But at the very least, like, she doesn't accept it. There's a line a little bit later on where the Sultan's like second in command is like frustrated because Princess Toadstool is not cooperating, and he runs up to the Sultan and he states, what is he hold on, where, yeah, she refuses to wear the harem veils and the roller skates. Like, what? What?
Wait a second.
Excuse me. And that's where I think the writer, Rowby, is having a good time with this, just because, like, harem veils and then roller skate, like, what?
Yeah, he definitely knew how to lighten it up a little bit. He was aware enough that not not totally appropriate for the demographic he's writing for.
And I know it's based off this episode is supposed to be based off the story of Aladdin. Does, like, the princess in that story get sold into a harem? Is that like?
I think it's honestly just like a cultural stereotype thing, is what I'm guessing, because Aladdin was part of the 1001 Arabian Nights, like that whole Scheherazade was telling the stories so that she wouldn't get. I don't remember if she was being forced to join a harem or so. I didn't read the book, but I know, like, the whole conceit of that is she would come up with a new story every night just to avoid being imprisoned, kind of thing, like for the Sultan or whoever had her captured. And so the way to get out of, like, okay, well, yeah, you once you've lost your use of me, you can, put me in the dungeon or put me in the harem or whatever. But as long as I keep coming up with a story that entertains you, kind of thing. And so that was what the conceit of that was. So it's a bunch of little stories, and Aladdin and the magic lamp was one of them. But that's why it all gets kind of conflated, because like Alibaba and the 40 Thieves is a separate thing, but they all get kind of conflated because they're all from 1001 Arabian Nights.
Yeah.
So next, this is where my favorite Luigi line came in.
Okay.
And after they've been separated from Toadstool, they're taking...
I think I know what you're going to say.
They're taking Mario and Luigi and Toad, and they're walking by all the treasure that the Sultan has, and they're like, look at all these rubies and gold coins and all this, and they're naming, like, all the treasure. And Luigi goes, yeah, all this stuff, it must be worth over $100.
I wrote that line down too, man. I thought that was just so funny. Like, 100. Like,
yeah.
Listen, I know money was worth more back in '89, but, like, even if you adjust that shit for inflation, you're probably looking at maybe $300 max, which I think that's even way higher than what it would be.
I did a double take. I rewound. I was like, is that what he said? Like, I thought that was hilarious.
Well, did you hear the line after that? Was their whole plan to escape after they get captured is that they'll just wait for the guard to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Like, they just, the guard's just going to fall asleep.
Yeah,
it's fine.
I mean, like, that's the cartoon trope, though. That's when all cartoons escape from prison, is when the guard falls asleep. So I like that they, the joke is right there on the nose. Like, it's like, yeah, we'll just wait for the guard to fall asleep. But they end up discovering the lamp instead. And so I guess this could be another one of those. You could kind of make this a tangential, like Mario Italian food craving, but instead he's got a glass cutter that's actually a pizza cutter to
I
get into the lamp.
Yeah, I wrote that down too. And side note, they knew about the lamp prior. They were going to go get it after the guard fell asleep, so they didn't just find it
Right.
on happenstance. But Mario's line about the pizza cutter, he goes, "What does he write? You can't, one, at least in the version I watched, you can't even see the glass. Like, it's just you see Mario draw a circle, and then you see a white line to represent that he cut the glass."
That's true. Yeah, you
But
don't know there's glass in front of it until he needs to cut it.
and then even after he cuts it and punches out the hole in it, you can't see the hole because it's just. I genuinely think they just drew a white circle on top and then drew a couple fragments of glass. They didn't bother trying to make it look like it was actually behind glass.
Yeah.
But he breaks out his industrial strength pizza cutter, like you said, and he goes, "This thing has cut through some pretty tough pizzas."
Yeah. And I just noticed watching it again that after he cuts the hole, he doesn't even reach through it. He just grabs the lamp like it's not behind glass.
Well, I think he does reach through it, but because you can't see the hole, you don't know.
Oh, yeah, I guess you're probably right.
It's
strange.
very tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Luigi and Mario help the genie out of her lamp, and my wife pointed this out. She sounds like Wanda from the Fairly Odd Parents, but like a cranky version of Wanda.
Yeah, I can hear that. I can definitely hear that. I was surprised that they went with such an obnoxious character for the genie.
I'm not. Like, they've done stuff like this before, and like, well, even the genie in like Captain N, right, where he wasn't obnoxious, but he was just kind of like lackadaisical.
Yeah,
You know what
not
I mean?
as magical or as amazing as you would expect a genie to be.
Exactly. Like, they always kind of subvert your expectations
I can
with
get
this.
behind
It
that.
seems like, you know.
Yeah. Most people give Aladdin, the Disney Aladdin movie, the credit for the goofy pop culture genie, but I would like to remind folks that the DuckTales movie did it first.
When did the DuckTales movie come out?
The DuckTales movie came out the year or two before.
Well, this came
And
out in '89, so this is even before that.
oh no, I'm talking about the stereotypical genie that we think of now. That's like fun and
Oh,
magical and exciting and makes pop culture references and stuff.
oh, okay, I getcha, I getcha. Yeah, so the genie comes out and they are asking the genie to help them rescue Princess Toadstool, and she's like, Mario like offers her like pepperoni and like baked lasagna and shit like that, and she's like, fine, fine, I'll help. And she's like, I can whip up a spell, and then she shoots it out, and it ends up not being a spell at all, spell. It's a smell. It's a magic smell, and it stinks really, really bad.
Yeah, I didn't get the joke until they spelled it out for me, unfortunately. Like, oh, you didn't make a magic spell, you made a magic smell. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought that was just going to
Nah,
be part of her plan to like empty out the castle or something.
I was able to I was able to figure it out beforehand. Now I will say though, did you hear what they were bartering? Like what? Because I skipped over a small section. The Sultan is done, this is a quote from the Sultan. I am not saying this. He is. When he gets told about her refusing to wear harem veils and roller skates, he the Sultan states he is quote unquote tired of the wench and is selling her, and puts an ad out in the quote unquote harem recycler.
God.
It's awful. It's so bad. Like, what? That's just so offensive. It's so like demeaning.
I'm guessing he had to be our pal Rowby. He had to know that like this is so over the top. People know I'm kidding, kind of thing. But
I
still,
would hope so.
yeah.
It's just wild. So he puts that ad out in the harem recycler. It's so fucked up. And Koopa is the one who responds, of course. And so now Koopa is trying to offer, like they're trying to barter for the princess. And did you catch what their offers were?
Oh, I did. I'm trying to remember what they were now.
Well, I have it. Are you ready?
Oh, please.
Koopa goes, I'll give you 3 urns of dried dates. This is my final offer. And the Sultan replies, goes saying he won't take anything less than, and I quote, 54 urns of chopped chicken liver.
That's right. Oh, goodness gracious, this show.
54. Well, okay. Take out the awful like sex trafficking aside. Um, what would someone do with 54 urns of chopped chicken liver? 3 urns of dried dates I could at least understand because it's like that's preserved already.
Yeah.
But 54 urns of chopped chicken liver, that shit's gonna spoil in like half a day.
And there's got to be a way to store them than in urns.
Seriously.
Wild.
Oh my god, man! It's so just so silly. It's so dumb. It's so like I was saying at the top. This episode is incredibly problematic, but it almost feels like it knows that it's that's the point of the joke. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. So yeah, that's the point that I kind of accidentally skipped over. That and then the magic smell happens, and then the little midway point where there's like, "Hey, we'll be right back with more Mario." And so then it cuts back, and Koopa has now somehow taken Princess Toadstool. Like, I guess, did the trade go through? Did he give him 54 urns of chopped chicken liver? Because he's flying on a flying carpet, but their version of flying carpet this because then Mario and team, they try to fly after them, and this is the flying spell I mentioned before, but they are going after Koopa, and Koopa's driving. It looks basically like an old like Model T style car, but with a rug underneath it.
Yep. It's actually not far off from the car he uses in 3D World.
Oh, really?
The cat one, yeah, where he's driving and throwing bob-ombs out the back and stuff, yeah. I've actually got the little Lego set of his car from that game.
Ooh, is that cool?
Yeah, I got it on, like, I don't usually buy Lego sets, but they were like, it was like $20 at Best Buy or something crazy. I was like, yeah.
Oh, wow, absolutely then. Holy shit.
But yeah, instead of tires, it's a carpet, like the body, like the chassis of the vehicle's on top of the flying carpet. But I noticed as it drives away that it still has like the spare tire on the back.
You're right. It does. That's really funny. Like, what is it? What's that tire going to be used for?
Exactly.
Mario and team chase after them by foot in the desert, and with the genie even running too.
And she still has the lamp stuck on her foot.
You know what? Props to them for the continuity.
Yeah.
I didn't even catch that till you said it. That's a really good observation. I did not even catch that until you said it. That's really funny.
Yeah.
So they want to get her to get them to fly, and that's when she says that's going to be a huge drain on me. Well, Luigi says that line, you know, like drain. We're plumbers. We can unclog any drain or whatever the fuck I said.
Yeah.
And then Mario goes, we'll grease your palm with gold coin. And she's like, now you're talking my language. And then she has a little rhyme, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, make them fly, I need the dough.
Yeah. And then all it does is just fling them in the air.
She launches them straight up into the air, and she goes, now how did I do that? And they fall on top of her, crash in, and Toad's like, I got an idea, let's check out one of those used flying carpets. And they basically get like the jalopy form. You know, if you have like a nice Rolls Royce or something that the Bowser's driving, they got the old jalopy.
Yep.
Oh, it's such a silly idea. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I think my favorite part of this episode is the flying carpets, not because of what they do for the plot, but just like, I don't know, it would have been so easy just to do like a regular ass carpet, but they decide to do cars on top of it, and I find that really amusing and humorous.
I also thought it was funny. The genie's complaining about, you know, like, you're going too fast, now you're flying too high, and it's also like they're swerving and all that stuff, and Toad goes, I don't know what's worse, the backseat driver or the front seat driver. And I thought that was kind of funny.
Agreed. I like that spot. I like that line a lot.
But Koopa's plan here, his scheme, because he's like, this is my evil scheme is right on plan, Toadstool. And his plan is to drop her into quicksand, which is what we referenced before. And my thing is, if he's just trying to get rid of her, why wait for quicksand?
Well, and here's the other thing. If Mario and Luigi are hung up at the Sultan's palace and they're stuck there, why wouldn't he just leave her there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he like this is just cruelty at this point. He's like, I can't just let her be sold into sex slavery. She's got to drown in quicksand too.
But he's already like way up high in the air. Why can't he just drop her over any ground?
That'll kill her. That will kill her. You're right.
Yeah, right. Like, why are we waiting?
Because that's like the thing. Like, I remember the joke from it's an old AVGN episode where it's Super Pitfall for the NES, and he climbs down a ladder, and you can't like adjust the trajectory of your fall in that game. I think, if I remember correctly, and directly underneath it is just is like a snake or something or like a spike. I forget exactly what it is, but he really lays into that. He's like, what's the fucking point of this? Because when you go down the ladder, there's an entire room, like there's all this space, but you can't get access to any of it because you fall straight down to your death. He's like, what's the point of this whole room? Why not? And why is it only just this at the bottom? If you're going to make this a death room, and make it a fucking death room, add some spikes to it, add some whatever to it. I'm going to have to find exactly like what it is that he's referencing. You know what? While I'm gonna look that up real quick while we're talking. But Dexter, so after he drops her into the quicksand, what does the Mario gang do?
Well, to catch up to Koopa while they're driving, and they want to sneak up on him, I believe it's Mario has the idea for Toad to jump up and down, to hop up and down on their carpet, and since it's such a old dusty jalopy, it's like dusting when you dust a rug when you hit it with a bat or a racket kind of thing. And so this big dust cloud forms around them so that they can sneak up on Koopa theoretically. But what I thought was adorable was as Toad is jumping on the carpet, it's making like the little squeaky toy, like like that's the sound of Toad jumping. I just thought that was funny, little squeaks. But yes, so I'm trying to remember now, like they sneak up on him, but he ends up seeing them in his rearview mirror on his car. Koopa sees them back there, drops Toadstool into the quicksand pit, and classic old school cartoon fashion, we see her like up to her neck, and then we cut away, and then we cut back, and she's going down again, like up to her neck, like somehow defying time and space. But they go down and they use a vacuum, right? Oh no, he uses the vacuum.
Yeah, Koopa uses a vacuum to like suck all the dust out of the air.
That's right. And reveal them, like the jig is up. I see you, plumber.
Well, and so real quick, I did look up the AVGN video, and in the beginning of the game, you climb down a ladder, and there's like the ladder only goes halfway down like this hole, and so you let yourself kind of fall the rest of the way, and you immediately get hit by a bird flying across the screen. When underneath the bird, even if the bird doesn't get you, there is even the bird doesn't, there is spikes underneath it. And even if you jump out of the spikes, there's a spider on the right side of this. And so his joke is like, let's just put every enemy we can possibly think of in the first 2 steps of the game.
That's right.
It's
such a funny game.
It was a bat, not a bird. But yeah, and I just the quicksand thing before kind of reminds me of that, where it's just like, it's not enough just to kill you. We're gonna make sure that like not only will you die from the fall, you're also gonna suffocate in the quicksand.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but yeah. So Bowser, exactly like you said, he throws her off. He sees Mario and team in the rearview mirror. His plan though once he sucks up all the dust from them after they rescue Toadstool, or sorry, I think it's like right before they rescue Toadstool. He sucks up all the dust. They fly down and get Toadstool, and Bowser,
Summons the Pidgets, right?
the Pidgets. Yes, he calls. It's like 1-800 There's like a number he calls, and it's like you can get Pidgets on demand.
Yes, and those are for those that have played Mario Brothers 2. Those are the little birds that sit on the magic carpets on Mario Brothers 2, and you could jump on them and throw them off and then ride their magic carpet. Like that was the whole thing. But for this cartoon, they're like Pokemon, and they just say their name, Pidget, Pidget, Pidget. And I thought that was funny that like, oh, they did it before Pokemon. But in this, the conceit is that they like to eat the magic carpets. Like that's why they're sitting on the magic carpet, I guess, in the game is what this show is trying to say. And it seems like all is lost, that their vehicle is going to be chewed up by all these Pidgets until Luigi saves the day by saying, "Oh yeah, I remember. I speak Pidget."
He just suddenly remembers. Oh yeah, I speak Pidget.
Yep. And picks one up with Pidget, Pidget, Pidget. You know, does his whole thing. They have a conversation, and finally, like the Pidget smiles, and then they all fly away. And they're like, "What'd you say?" He's like, "If they like our carpet, they should go eat Koopa's. His is gonna be delicious."
That's all it takes. That's all it takes to do. And the genie lamp falls into Koopa's after Koopa's magic carpet gets eaten to hell. The genie's lamp falls in there, and then they just fly off. And like, there's no like conclusion for the genie, like what's gonna happen. Like Koopa technically is a genie there, but I guess the genie's kind of useless, as we found out. She tries to make the guys fly, and it doesn't really work. She tries to cast a spell, and it's a smell. And the final line of the cartoon segment is Toadstool basically says it looks like he's just going to need a carpet cleaner.
Yep.
And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much how that one ends. Any thoughts before we move on to the second half of the second half of the live action portion?
I thought this was a fun one. Like I had plenty of chuckles. A couple of the puns were a little too layered, where I was like, okay, it's a little too much. But for the most part, like we've been chuckling since we've been talking about it. Like there were some really genuinely good jokes that were in there. But I don't know. This solid. It's all like it referenced Aladdin. It wasn't as overt as like going step by step and doing the exact same story. It had some changes in there. It didn't feel like it went by quick. Solid episode. It was not bad. It wasn't my favorite, but solid.
Agreed entirely. I think, like, yes, there's the problematic stuff we already talked about. Like, I still can't believe they fucking have a episode in this show in a children's cartoon. Remember, this is geared towards like 6 to 9 year olds, right? Where you sell a woman into a harem and then sell her, basically sell her into sex slavery. Like, it's so weird. Like it's just such a weird thing. Like but it's played so tongue in cheek. It's just odd. It's a really odd episode. But I had moments that made me chuckle, and like they it's so silly and over the top. It's like it's hard to take it seriously. But I'm still like, I think that's why this episode is so jarring to me. Where it's like, it's really fucked up what they do, but it's done so tongue-in-cheek and so silly. It's like I don't like the tone just is a mishmash for me in a weird way.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I will put a knock against it is like the Aladdin stuff feels much more like a tacked on aesthetic than it is an actual like driving force to the story. It's almost like this episode was written and then they had to throw like an Aladdin flourish on it, if that makes sense, because like the lamp and the magic and the palaces and like, I don't know, they didn't really have an impact. You could change it and make it Atlantis and mermaids, and you know what I mean? Like it's not much more than an aesthetic as far as the actual plot goes.
No, I'm in agreement with that. You're right. There's really not much more to it than just the aesthetic. It really doesn't have anything to do with the plot. So then it cuts. We cut over to the live action segment, and we actually see Mario and Luigi leave to get some refreshments, and they want 2 pounds of grapes, 2 pounds of fig, 4 dozen tangerines.
He's a big guy.
He's a big guy. Yeah, he's like, why do we need 4 dozen tangerines? Like, he's a big guy. I love that line. They leave, and then Lyle shows up, and he's a handsome looking dude. Not gonna lie, he's a good looking dude. I know that like that style of clothing that he's wearing is very much '89, but he kind of works it. And then Marianne and Luigeena show up. Luigeena.
Too many genies in this.
Now, so it's Lou Albano and Danny Wells dressed up, basically in drag, right? The thing that gets me the most, though, is they don't shave Lou Albano's mustache. They just put a shitload of makeup over top of it. It's like matted to his face.
It looks extremely uncomfortable.
Imagine like poor Lyle, like even if he's not like uncomfortable by it and he like kind of rolls with it, how weird does it have to see this man with like makeup plastered over his mustache, like that close to your face? You know what I mean?
Right. Yes. It seems, like I said, it seems as uncomfortable for Lou Albano to wear it as it is for us to see him like that with this flesh-colored mustache.
I never would have described it that way, but a flesh-colored mustache is right. Oh God, that's disgusting. That's so gross.
It's not as charming as when Cesar Romero had to do it as the Joker in the old '60s Batman.
Yeah. It's so uncomfortable. But Marianne shoos Luigeena off and cuddles up next to Lyle, which you can see makes him uncomfortable. And she's like, "Well, let's go see these next clips from the next Legend of Zelda."
Yeah. These last few moments are so awkward. And Lou's doing a great job of just being like really close to Lyle.
He is like in it. Like he is loving it. I love how committed he is to the bit.
Absolutely.
And I think Lyle actually is too. I think he's really like going for it as well. Like he like just kind of lets it happen. He's playing the part well where he's like his character's uncomfortable, but he's just, I don't know. I think it's a really good performance from everyone, all in a weird sense where it's silly and it's dumb, but everyone's committing to the bit and it's wonderful.
I'm almost willing to, this being the only thing I've seen that I can remember seeing Lyle Alzado in, might be the best athlete actor I've ever seen.
Yeah, actually, I think he's really good in it. Well, because he like going onto his Wikipedia, he did try to get into acting. He was in a television. What is it? He pursued a career in both. This is straight from Wikipedia. Pursued an acting career in both movies and television, appearing mostly in youth-oriented comedy and adventure roles. His most notable film includes the bully construction worker in Ernest Goes to Camp, and the unstoppable killer in Destroyer.
Yes.
Oh, he plays the villain in a slasher flick. Yo, I kind of need to watch this now. And he appeared in Mike Hammer Murder Takes All, which is a 1989 American mystery crime thriller television film. As a notorious bodyguard and rifleman, and he played prison staff member Braun in the 1990 film Club Fed, which is a comedy, and co-starred in the film Neon City. So I'd be curious about other stuff. But yeah, and he did TV shows, obviously, and whatnot. But yeah, it's kind of wild. He's not bad. He genuinely is not bad in this.
Yeah. because when you think of like athletes, you think of like Shaq and like how terrible he was in Kazam and things like that. Like, when you think of most athletes in commercials, they're terrible. So Lyle Alzado gets the seal of approval from me as an athlete that can
the
act.
Dexter seal of approval.
That's right. That means something to somebody, someone.
So Luigi does show back up. Marianne kicks Luigeena out, saying, "Hey, take a hike." And she's like, "Well, I come all the way here." I forget what she says, but she's mad because she feels like she does all this work and only to get booted out. And then Luigi shows back up, and he tries to save Lyle from Marianne. And he sees Marianne just like resting her feet on top of Lyle, like resting her legs,
Yeah.
and Luigi's trying to apologize to Lyle, like him and Mario were going to get like refreshments for hanging out and whatnot, and Marianne says she has to go, and she's like, "But Lyle, don't forget about dancing." And then Luigi has one of the best lines of the entire episode. Did you hear what he says to her as she's leaving?
No.
She goes, as she's leaving, she goes, "Oh, Marianne, while you're out there, why don't you check out Alaska?"
Oh, yes.
Like the best. I think that's the most funny, subtle, like "get the fuck out of here" line I've ever heard in a show. Why don't trying to shoo someone away? Just I don't know why. It's so it's so
It's a great
effective.
burn that sounds polite.
Yeah, it's a great burn that sounds polite. That's perfectly what it is. "Oh, Marianne, while you're out there, why don't you check out Alaska?" Just
So good.
Then
I was gonna
Mario
say,
shows back up.
They keep timing it perfectly. When one of them leaves, the other counterpart comes back. Like they didn't even try to like do the sharing the screen together thing.
I mean, they do a little bit later because Marianne and Luigeena come back in, but they're just never in the same shot together. You just see them walking through the door together, and then it cuts back to Mario, Luigi, and Lyle standing together. So you never see them all together in the same scene, and they're just kind of. It's very clear that this was filmed in two separate times.
Yes. Yep.
And then they say, "All right, we're gonna go now." Actually, what is it? They say, "Lyle, don't worry about dancing. We saw Mel Gibson on the street, and we're gonna follow him home."
Yeah. Right. Yep. They've changed who they're going to stalk.
And then Lyle is sad that Mel stole his girls.
Yeah.
This was before it was known that Mel Gibson was Mel Gibson. The problematic Mel Gibson. So it is a little weird hearing that. I'm like, I don't know if you want to follow that guy home.
Right.
But the episode ends with that. They end with Lyle and Marianne and Luigeena doing the Mario, and that's how the episode ends. And we do the Mario. We finish off this episode of the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. So Dexter, throwing it over to you. Final thoughts on this episode.
This has not turned me off from continuing to do this to the end. This fueled me, continued to fuel me, and my love of this show. Yeah, because I, like we've mentioned when we first started this, like I definitely watched this as a kid, but maybe some images and flashes of moments stuck with me. But all of this is awesome to watch, like as an adult now with complete context and understanding of what's going on. So this one did not let me down as far as like, oh man, what would be, I guess, an example of that? Do you ever see a movie that as a kid and then you watch it as an adult and you're like, oh my gosh, what was my child brain doing?
Everything Three Ninjas. Every single thing Three Ninjas.
Never. How dare you? Three Ninjas is a classic.
No, I love Three Ninjas, but every single thing Three Ninjas I'll watch again. I think I've talked about it before, but did you ever see Three Ninjas Knuckle Up?
Oh yes, I've got all 4 movies on VHS.
I knew you were my friend for a reason.
Yeah.
Do you remember in that movie? So that one is about there is an indigenous reservation that's getting poisoned by a toxic waste company, and they're trying to fight back in court, but the toxic waste like the waste management company, of course, is like basically pulling a mafia thing and like kidnapping members of them, trying to bully them into dropping the lawsuit and all this other stuff. Well, Rocky, Colt, and Tum Tum help them out, and they go in to rescue their leader who's been kidnapped by the waste management company, and the bad guys are chasing after him. And the way they sneak into the waste management areas, but they go through the sewer.
Right.
And do you remember how the bad guys are like, "Oh, we can't go in the sewer. It smells so bad. We're not going to do that." And the one guy's like, "Wait, I got an idea." And do you know what they do to try to stop the kids from that point?
I don't they like try to blow them up or something?
They pour gasoline into the sewer and light a match on 10 to 13-year-old children. They are going to blow them out of the water, quite literally, with a shitload of gasoline. It is one of the most horrific things. I was watching it with my brother as I went, holy fuck, I watched this as a kid.
That's so funny.
It is so beyond fucked up, man. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, Mario and Luigi, Mario Super Show.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. I think this episode was fun. Problematic stuff aside, I do think this episode was really fun. And going through all these, it's just making me love this more and more and hate Zelda more and more. Like every Zelda episode, even though it's shorter, feels 20 minutes longer than these.
Yes.
And that's wild because like this show is known to not be like great, but something that like I'm noticing the more we watch it, it's just they were just having fun. Like they knew this wasn't going to be Shakespeare. It wasn't going to be anything groundbreaking or speak on the human condition or anything like that.
Right.
They knew all that, and they just enjoy the shit out of it. They eat the scenery, like both in terms of the cartoon and in terms of like the live action segments. And I'll be honest, if I ever like become like super rich or some shit like that, I want to recreate that set.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
I just think that'd be super fucking fun. I would really, really like to see that. But yeah, it's just I'm enjoying this, and the more I do this, the more I enjoy this. But we should wrap up this episode, Dex. We're running on an hour now, and I'm sure it's going to be a little less by the time I cut some shit out. So, as usual, my friend, where can the good people find you online, and what would you like to promote?
Yeah, sure thing. You can find me on most of the social medias under my name, DexterMorrill. That's Dexter Morrill. I'm usually on there sharing video game stuff, sharing animation stuff, sharing my artwork, my students' artwork. So that's what's going on. By the time this comes out, the Retro World Expo will be over, but hopefully that went off. It's actually happening
today.
Starting today.
Today is the first day of it, and I'm kind of bummed that I can't go this year.
Yes, I'm gonna have to try to go back one of these years. I went the first time I started working with them. I went that first year, and it was a blast. And I know it's only gotten bigger and better. So, but yeah, I do that. I do book covers, all kinds of fun stuff. So you can check me out on social media and say hello. Yeah.
And as usual for myself, you can follow me Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Twitch at StillLoadingPod. You can also follow me at StillLoading Podcast on YouTube. If you want to support the show, you can do so in a number of ways. You can give it a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcast, YouTube. I don't know. Can you give ratings on YouTube Music? I don't know. Whichever podcasting app you use, if you give it a rating on there, a 5-star rating, it really helps the show. It helps more people find it. It tells the algorithms like, hey, this show is cool and I'm an algorithm god. Let me eat up your reviews and your clicks and nom 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 nom. I don't know. That's an awful plug, but give it a 5-star rating or review on whichever.
That needs to be a mascot now. The algorithm.
The algorithm mascot. Just give me your clicks. Yes, imagine there's a bunch of military guys. All right, the target zone is about 4 clicks east. Clicks. That's a dumb joke.
No, I like it. I like it.
Just loses his mind. Clicks. Anyway, so there's the 5-star rating review. It helps the algorithm and shit. You can also support the show by going to Patreon, patreon.com/stillloadingpod. There's lots of goodies over there. They're at the $1 level. You get all the episodes a little bit earlier in a higher bit rate. You also get access to patron voting rights, which help guide the direction of the show. And at the time this episode is coming out, I'm going to have to double check, Dexter. I was about to call you Luigi because my guest for Still Bonding last night was Luigi's apartment, and I keep getting confused with the Luigi from the cartoon and Luigi from the show, and it's just confusing me, Dex.
That's funny.
Let me double check my schedule here real quick. But this episode is coming out in September. So next month, in a few weeks, actually, there's going to be a huge chunk of patron voted episodes. October is backlog month, so there will actually be no episode of our rewatch then, because it's 4 episodes of just games from my backlog, which at the time we're recording this, I have finally beaten all 4 games. I just have 1 episode left to record. And then after that is my quarterly poll, which is Warhammer 40k bolt gun. So I say all that to say there's lots of options for you to help guide the direction of the show. That's 5 episodes in a row of just patron chosen topics. So backlog month only happens once a year though, so that otherwise it's quarterly polls. But yeah, that's all over on Patreon for the $1 level. You get all that for just $1 a month. For $3 a month, you get everything prior plus patron shoutouts, which you heard at the beginning of this episode. For $4 a month, you get everything prior plus 2 mini bonus episodes every month. And for $5 a month, you get everything before plus access to my monthly movie podcast, which actually when this comes out will be, oh man, it is coming up to the end of Still Bonding, which is my James Bond podcast where me and a bunch of friends bond over 007. And this episode, let me see, make sure I have the dates correct. By the time this episode comes out, actually the last Still Bonding and the last movie Still Bonding will have been just released over on Patreon at the $5 level, and there's going to be one more that comes out as kind of like the finale type of thing. So that's coming close to an end, and after that, it is Still Family, my monthly Fast and Furious movie podcast that'll be taking its place. So that's all over at patreon.com/stillloadingpod. I got to do this plug shorter. I feel I give way too much info. That's patreon.com/stillloadingpod. But that's it. That's all the time I got on this episode of Still Loading. Thank you all so much for listening. Dexter, thank you once again for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Do the Mario. another look into the Mario Brothers Super Show. You motherfucking dog. Did you hear that?
No.
Fucking dog. All right. Let's start that over from the top. You motherfucking dog. That's going to be a blooper.